The 2025 49ers, a rebuild or a rebirth? Welcome to the show, everybody. I'm Chunder Boy, and I am the host of this show, as you know. We have not been here for quite some time. We took a little bit of time off, needed to kind of go through some things. I've been going live with Coach every week, almost every week. There's a lot of things that we want to do with this channel as far as production, as far as graphics, things like that, and we're bringing all that to you. So I kind of wanted to shut it down, do a reset. So we're going to start same place we were, and we're going to continue all off season to just bring you more and more and more and deliver on the kind of podcast that all of you are expecting. So before we dive too far into this particular podcast, the reason I'm doing this particular podcast is, although it's late, I mean, the combine literally started, people started arriving today. I think it's relevant. Over the next several weeks, we're going to be covering the combine and free agency and the draft, and we're going to do mock drafts. We're going to do all those things. But it's important to go into those conversations with an idea of where we stand right now. And you can't really do that without exploring how we got to where we are right now. So I want to do a brief summary of the 2025 season, but the thing I want to focus on tonight, what did we learn? What did we learn about our 49ers this year, and more importantly, about our head coach and our QB1? Because we all know that in the NFL, if you don't have the coach and you don't have the quarterback, you're not going to get the ring. That's just the way it works. All right. So let's dive in real quick. The 49ers had really an incredible season. When you look at the fact that the 49ers were overlooked all offseason, the coaches literally said, don't expect too much. We'll figure it out as we go. It was so obvious, and the 49ers made it very clear they're not trying to win a championship. I mean, they're going to try. I mean, of course they're going to try to win one, but they're not going to put the resources that are necessary. They're not going to put their best foot forward to win a championship. They're going to try, but they're going to try to do it with a lot less. And that all culminated into the 49ers going into this season with half of their salary cap actually on the field. $100 million in dead cap and over $40 million in unused cap. Half their salary cap wasn't on the field. And this team still figured out a way to win 12 games and slap the shit out of the Philadelphia Eagles. It was so enjoyable in the wild card round before finally getting their own face punched repeatedly over and over by the Seattle Seahawks. That was less fun. So let's get into it. So what happened last year? The 49ers had a pretty solid draft, it looks like. They went full defense because the front line, really the front seven, if you include Dick Martin, if you include somebody like an Upton Stout slot, in kind of your front seven, right? The front needed to be totally retooled, and they did that through the draft. But the 49ers literally started the offseason by adding a backup tight end. That was their big free agent signing. And then didn't use him at all. The 49ers also cut Kyle Juszczyk, took a cap hit for cutting him, and signed him back to the roster 2 days later. If it wasn't for the fact that it's a fullback and it's a fullback contract, it would have been arguably the worst transaction series in the history of the NFL. Head scratching. This is what we're going into the season with. Then the 49ers come out. Nick Bosa plays a tremendous game. Brock Purdy throws up a little bit of a prayer into the corner of the end zone, and the legend, Jake Tonjes, more on him in a minute, comes leaping forward to steal the ball away from the defender, to score the go-ahead touchdown, and then to seal the game, Old Faithful Nick Bosa comes through and puts the tackle in the lap of the quarterback to seal the game. I mean, the 49ers really gave us something to hope for right off the bat. But as was the tradition for this season for the 49ers, we can't have nice things. Brock Purdy hurts his toe, gets a turf toe injury. I know it sounds minor. It's not, especially not for a quarterback, especially not if it's on, especially when it affects the mechanics of the throw. And especially when the quarterback is the type of quarterback who needs all of his mechanics, because let's be honest, he doesn't have the physical stature, the arm strength, and things like that to just throw arm only because he doesn't have his base under him. So the fact that he was able to finish the way he did with that injury, kind of nuts. Adrenaline does a lot. But then Mac enters the lineup. Then Brock comes back in week 4 too early, gets hurt again, and now we start the quarterback controversy. To be totally clear, the quarterback controversy was really started when Mac Jones balled out in week 5 against the Rams. I mean, one of the guttiest performances you've ever seen from any quarterback in the history of the NFL. This was like one notch below like Michael Jordan flu game type shit. The amount of respect that Mac Jones deserves for that performance can't really be measured. It was incredible. But one game is not enough to suggest that you should make a quarterback switch, like other people were hinting at. Then Matt continued to play well. He's throwing the ball 40 times a game, which apparently is relevant. But what did we actually learn about the 49ers through this process? Bosa goes down early in the season. Week 7, you lose Fred Warner. You lose your quarterback in the first game of the season. He misses 8 games total for the season. What you learned is that the culture that's been established with the San Francisco 49ers can endure, more than I've seen almost any other team ever endure. And it also showed us one more critical thing. The total lack of depth that everybody talked about all offseason. How the 49ers gutted their roster and they have no depth and all their stars are getting old. That turned out to only be half true. Because although their stars are getting old and the injuries piling up it's not a new phenomenon. It happens constantly. And it's also probably not going away because you're relying on the oldest part of your roster to handle the workload the most. But the 49ers have more depth than we thought, and that includes me. I don't think anybody thought the 49ers had the kind of depth and composure and pure grit that we saw them put together. Now, I did predict a 13-win season. I was much higher on the 49ers, but that was because I thought their team was better. When you looked at the team in the offseason, how many teams have 5 future Hall of Famers on their team? How many teams have top 3, top 5 players at almost all of the critical positions? Left tackle, edge rusher, middle linebacker. Brock Purdy's a much better quarterback than he gets credit for. Trust me, we'll get to that. And on top of that, you have one of the best coaching staffs in football. And you have a schedule where you're playing like 5 teams that might make the playoffs. You should, if you don't win 10 games with that kind of a roster, it's malpractice. I thought because of the schedule, even though I thought we would get banged up a bit, I didn't expect the catastrophe that we saw. But even if we got banged up a little bit, I thought 13 was actually, I mean, I was being a little bold. Turned out that I was pretty close. 12 wins with that roster, with those conditions, it's unheard of. So what did we learn about the 49ers? Their culture is real. It's not just something fake they talk about in the news. The culture is real. And one of the things that drives me bananas is when I hear people say that the 49ers suck at drafting and developing. I understand that the vast majority of the people who say they suck at drafting are really talking about like the first 3 rounds, day 1, day 2, because their track record is not spectacular. It's not as bad as people make it out to be, but it is certainly not up to par. It is below average. But the development part of that to me is total nonsense. Fred Warner was developed. He wasn't drafted that way. He wasn't Patrick Willis, who was a stud in college at middle linebacker, day 1 starter stud for the 49ers, defensive rookie of the year. George Kittle was developed. And you could go down the list. Colton McKivitz got cut and then found his way back onto the roster and then developed. John Lenore was developed. Our other starting corner, drafted in the 2nd round and developed. Our best safeties this season were Marquise Siegel and Malik Mustafa. Both of them are drafted and developed. They both have a ways to go. But I really like what I see out of both of them. Jair Brown played really good football in that big nickel role. He kind of found his role in the defense and played really well. Drafted and developed. The idea that this team can't develop players is total fucking nonsense. I don't get it at all. Again, the claim that they suck at drafting because their miss rate, it's not just the miss rate. It's how many times they've had the ability to pick in the top 3 rounds with all their compensatory picks and how many picks they flat out wasted. Set aside for the second that they wasted 3 first-round draft picks on a quarterback that played 4 games. That'd get almost anybody fired. But then they waste 3rd-round pick after 3rd-round pick after 3rd-round pick on running backs that don't even make it to the end of their rookie contract, a fucking kicker, the most arrogant draft pick in the history of the NFL. So what did we learn? The people that said they suck at drafting, you've got a leg to stand on. There's a good argument to be made. And I think it's reasonable to discuss the fact that the 49ers have some real flaws in their process when it comes to drafting. But their ability to evaluate talent and then to develop the talent once it's there. The idea that they can't develop anybody, it's nonsense. Anyway, where does that come from? It comes from the head coach. Okay? So what is it about Shanahan that makes him so polarizing? And what did we learn this season about our head coach? He's polarizing because he's blatantly arrogant. When people ask him questions, when he's at the podium and he thinks it's a stupid question, the whole world knows that he thinks it's a stupid question because he treats you like you're a moron asking a stupid question. The blunders, the late game gaffes, the not knowing the rules in overtime in the fucking Super Bowl. There's a lot of things to criticize, but what you can't criticize is Kyle Shanahan does 2 things as well or better as anybody in football. And that should be set in stone after this year. One, he does a tremendous job of picking coaches, of selecting coaches, developing coaches. Robert Saleh was picked by Kyle Shanahan. He didn't get his first option that he wanted. I actually think he didn't even get his second option that he wanted when he first took over in 2017. I think his first option was actually Vic Fangio. But they couldn't agree on defensive philosophy. Kyle Shanahan was enamored with the Seattle cover 3 scheme. So he went and found a really smart young coach and gave him his first shot at defensive coordinator. And it didn't start great, but Kyle stuck with him. Right? The Kyle Shanahan loyalty program. It's famous. And Saleh turned out to be one of the best defensive minds in football. Johnny Holland, the running back coach, Turner, Chris Furster, the offensive line coach. They have some of the best coaches, position coaches in all of football. They've produced like 5 or 6 head coaches since he took over in 2017. Especially if you consider that Clay Kubiak, who came through the 49ers system before going to Seattle, just got hired by the Raiders. Kyle Shanahan's ability to not just develop players, but to develop a coaching staff. That is ultimately the head coach's primary responsibility, is to teach the other coaches. Because those coaches are the ones that going into the meeting room with the players and taking the scheme and taking the plays and teaching all that stuff to them. But Kyle has to teach it to them first in many ways. We all know part 2. Part 2 is that Kyle Shanahan is a brilliant football mind. Genius level football mind on both sides of the ball. And that's fairly rare. Not only is it rare because not that many people know both sides of the wall, both sides of the football, inside and out, but defensive coaches usually know offense better than offensive coaches know defense. It's rare for an offensive coach, head coach, mastermind, to know every rule of every defense. It's insane. But we knew a lot of this already. So what did we actually learn about Kyle this year? Kyle is at his best when he is forced to come up with a unique strategy in a unique way of getting a win. We saw it early on with the 49ers when the 49ers put somebody like Nick Mullins out there who had no business being in a conversation with people like Tom Brady for the amount of yards he threw in his first 16 games. A coach who rolled out a team that lost, 5 games in a row by 3 points or less. I think that was an NFL record at the time. With a team that had 13 players on its roster when they entered the offseason, when they got rolling in the offseason, they gutted that roster in 2017. And they figured out a way to piece it all together. They were competitive all year long and then rattled off 5 wins down the stretch after getting Jimmy Garoppolo. Jimmy fucking Garoppolo was seen as the savior because of Kyle Shanahan. Franchise savior by a lot of people because of Kyle Shanahan. Kyle Shanahan showed us this year that he still has the ability to be innovative, creative, create game plans to just outthink the other coach on the other side of the field. But what that also teaches us is that Kyle got complacent. Kyle got arrogant and complacent. He had too much success too fast, and they rested on their laurels. They got to a Super Bowl in 2019, and then they got banged up by injuries. I mean, one of the worst injury bugs that the NFL has seen in a long time. Now, we've since repeated that a couple times, but at the time in 2020, we were decimated by injuries. We lost Bosa and our starting quarterback that year too. Then 2021 rolls around. The 49ers make another run. 2022, another run. 2023, another run. 3 consecutive NFC championship games and a Super Bowl loss. Lost in the NFC championship game to the eventual Super Bowl champions and the Rams. Lost in the NFC championship game to the eventual Super Bowl champions and the Philadelphia Eagles. In a game they should have won. I think the Eagles won that year. Did they lose that year? I'm not sure. At the end of the day, Kyle Shanahan got cocky. He got complacent. And he wasn't putting his best foot forward. And it cost the 49ers not a championship. It cost them a dynasty. The 49ers had the best football team in football for like 5 years in a row. And you can blame things on injuries. You can blame things on a quarterback missing a pass in the Super Bowl. You can blame it on a safety dropping a pick right through his arms. Blame it on whatever you want. It's all bullshit. What happened is Kyle Shanahan got complacent. He rested on his laurels. And if you want the perfect example of this, the most arrogant draft pick in the NFL in the history of the league is Jake Moody. Why? Because Jake Moody was drafted because, and Kyle Shanahan told us this out loud in his presser, the 49ers didn't think there were any players available at the time who could actually make their roster. So they drafted a kicker because they knew at least he would play. Are you fucking kidding me? Is this really how this is the process the 49ers are using to build their roster? No wonder they haven't had hardly any success in the first round or the second round or the third round. They've had a few hits. Warner was a great grab in the third round. Sure, they got Bosa in the first round. You could have closed your eyes and thrown a dart at 3 or 4 players available at the time. Every one of them would have hit. The 49ers, the narratives around this team, they drive me nuts sometimes. The fact is, the 49ers are one of the best teams in the NFL at developing coaches. They consistently churn out head coaches. No team that has not won a Super Bowl has ever turned out more head coaches than Kyle Shanahan. Period. And it's not close. They develop players at an extremely high rate. And they do it from all over the draft. Because Ayuk was developed. So was Debo, and utilized in an extremely unique way because he had an extremely unique skill set. But that the coaches saw that and they took advantage of it. Mike McDaniel created literally a new position because they had this unicorn of a player. That's good coaching. You take a guy, he's got this crazy skill set, and you say, all right, well, shit, how do we use this against the defense? That's a coach's whole job. And they did it incredibly well. But there's one position that gets the most scrutiny. There's one position that gets the most love on any NFL team. That's the quarterback. So what did we learn about Brock this year? We learned that the 49ers have an incredible culture. We learned that the 49ers are deeper than we thought. We also learned that their coaching staff actually does develop really well, coaches and players. We also learned that the grit, the resiliency, the buy-in. But what did we learn about the quarterback? Well, we learned whether or not he's a QB1. Okay. What were the biggest question marks about Brock? So here's the narrative. Let me back the train up a little bit and let me just kind of lay out the narrative as I saw it. Brock Purdy steps in his very first game against Miami, plays outstanding, got blitzed constantly. I've never seen a rookie quarterback in his first start play so well under that kind of pressure, ever. On top of that, if you add in that he was the fourth string quarterback all through camp, he was the third string quarterback until the week before that, or 2 weeks before, or whatever it was when Trey Lance went down. The dude got no reps until like 3 weeks before he was a starter. Oh, by the way, that was Flores, who was the coach of that team on that defense. One of the best defensive coordinators in all of football. Then the next week, he goes out and he beats the legend Tom Brady. Obviously, they don't play against each other, but that's a huge storyline. To see your first start be against fucking Tom Brady. And to play as well as he did also under a ton of pressure. Then we go into the playoffs. And the 49ers, or Brock Purdy, gets his arm torn off. Lose to the Eagles. The 49ers lick their wounds, but Brock Purdy has another offseason with no reps. Why? Because he couldn't throw a football till like a week before the season. I think he was throwing a football around in training camp, but like wasn't actually like doing full practice with the team till like 10 days before the game, the first game of either preseason or regular. I mean, right before the season started is when he first finally actually started throwing the ball with the team. By midseason, he was an MVP candidate. Now, a lot of people look at that and say, oh, the stats are overinflated. They're overhyped. A lot of people looked at that and they literally said that it's because he plays with the Avengers. That the entire offense around him was so good, you can put damn near anybody in there. I mean, just look at Jimmy Garoppolo. This same offense elevated Jimmy Garoppolo, had people thinking that Jimmy Garoppolo was a legit, elite, franchise quarterback. Turns out he's a bum. That's fair. It's perfectly fair to have that concept, especially when Brock Purdy's like 6 foot maybe, 210 maybe, like or 220 maybe, like average arm maybe, average speed. He's got really good burst, but he doesn't have great speed. Pretty wicked 10-yard split, but that's probably his only elite physical trait. He's got a real good 10-yard split. A lot of people, I've seen that before. I'm not getting fooled twice. But there were things about Purdy early on that were not being talked about enough. Everybody was talking about EPA per play and DVOA and all these cool advanced metrics that he was number one in everything. Yards per attempt, yeah, but so was Jimmy. Completion percentage high, yeah, so was Jimmy's. EPA per play, much better than Jimmy's, but Jimmy's didn't suck. What nobody was talking about is the types of throws he was making. It's the same types of throws he's still making. There was a slump in those throws. We'll get to that in a minute. But the high accuracy, anticipatory, tight window throws where he is being asked drive after drive to make extremely difficult throws. How often he is looking off guys and throwing into the zones behind them. from the jump was never talked about enough. The whole conversation was, look at his stats if you loved Purdy. Yeah, but look at the film if you don't like Purdy. Well, first of all, if you actually were looking at the film, you would have seen all those throws that he was making constantly. However, I don't care about the stats people watch Jimmy do the same thing for a year and a half. Really, I guess really it was like 3 years, but he had an injury, and you know what I mean. Can't blame him. Makes sense. And then all the haters got their wish. And in 2024, Brock Purdy lost all his weapons, had a colander for an offensive line, one of the worst defense in football, and the worst special teams unit in football. And the narrative is, see, if he doesn't have weapons, it's the laziest, worst take on grading out a quarterback I've ever seen. You didn't just take away some of his weapons. You cleaned the entire cupboard out. You gave him the worst situation possible. Now I want you to go look at those numbers. Go look at the games that he actually played. Don't cherry pick the 5 bad throws. Look at the rest of them. Now, what I'm getting at is you have to look at everything in context. That's why this whole show, okay? Here, I'll put it up there for you, everybody. For everybody, where we bring context to the conversation, because context matters. And this was one of the most critical times that we needed context, and I don't know if we got it, and here's why. Brock Purdy had 2 serious regressions during a 20-25 game stretch where he wasn't playing as well as we saw earlier or as well as we saw at the end of this year. And I'll get to those regressions in just a minute. But what we did see is a quarterback with a terrible offensive line, a wide receiver core that had the worst separation rate in 15 years, a defense that constantly put him in bad situations, and a special teams unit that lost at least 2, maybe 3, or even 4 of those games that year. And Brock still put up solid numbers. Go look if you don't believe me. Just shy of 4,000 yards, over 20 touchdowns. Picks were a little high. He had like 13. We'll talk about that in a minute. The idea that Brock Purdy played subpar quarterback in 2024, that he proved in 2024 he's not a franchise quarterback, is asinine. No quarterback, unless their name is Patrick Mahomes or Tom Brady, or there's some fucking unicorn of a quarterback, no quarterback can be expected to play well in those conditions. And most quarterbacks, especially quarterbacks that are not franchise quarterbacks, would melt under that pressure. They would play so bad, they'd get benched. Brock Purdy was never at risk of getting benched. And remember, Sam Darnold was on that team. The quarterback that just won the fucking Super Bowl, the quarterback that won 14 games with the Minnesota Vikings the year before that, last year, technically 2 years ago now, I guess. I don't know how you want to count it. But both of those guys, Brock Purdy and Sam Darnold, were on that team. See, Brock was never at risk of getting benched. There were 2 things about that season, and almost nobody talked about it. And I don't understand. If you're going to be a Brock hater, at least hate on him for the things he's actually doing poorly. We saw serious regression in Brock's decision-making. The thing that made Brock an excellent quarterback for the first 20 or 25 games before the infamous Ravens game I hate it when people talk about that game. People now talk about that game. I got to digress for one moment. Please bear with me. I'll get back on topic. I promise. But please digress because this drives me bananas. They talk about the Ravens game like Brock Purdy threw 4 horrific picks. Go watch the game. 2 of them were not even on him. And a third one was also tipped. He threw 1 just horrendous pick in that game. The other 3, 2 of them were not on him, and the other one was an unlucky tipped ball. What are we talking about? Why do people feel like they have to move the goalpost? Here's why you don't have to move the goalpost. Brock Purdy's accuracy went to shit in 2024. He was dirting balls that we've never seen him do that before. He was over the guy over the head of guys, throwing hospital balls. One of them got George banged. It was so unlike Brock. His accuracy was off. Apparently, there was some injury stuff we didn't know about, but I don't give a shit. I don't care about the excuses. His anticipation was off. His timing. Now, I think what happened is not excuses. I try to work through this stuff. I think what happened is early on in that season, Brock Purdy was running for his life behind that offensive line and with a wide receiver core that would not get open. And I think it sped the clock up of a young quarterback. That's what I think happened. He was bailing out of clean pockets. His anticipatory throws, they didn't disappear, but they were way less. And not as crisp and clean. He wasn't anticipating getting it out as early. He wasn't throwing it to it was off. The timing was just off. So he's missing guys when they're open. NFL quarterbacks have to hit the open guy. That's the number one thing you have to do. If you're a quarterback in the NFL, I don't give a shit if you're the best guy or the 32nd best starter. You have to hit the open players. There's no excuses for an NFL quarterback to miss an open guy, ever. Brock's missing open guys. That was the stuff that made me lose confidence. What did we learn about Brock in 2025? Brock Purdy started the season off showing some grit. We didn't even know he was hurt in that game. He fought his way through it and played a solid game. It wasn't great, but it certainly wasn't a bad game. Then he came back too early because Mac played really well in week 2 and week 3. And then we lose a game against the Jaguars. Then Mac goes and fucking balls out against the Rams, as we discussed earlier. The 49ers rattle off a few more games. I think they started, 6-1? Brock Purdy eventually comes back. And when he does, we started to see some of the old Brock. Brock can't play in bad weather games. It's the narrative. Did all right against the Browns, against a fearsome pass rush. He started to check some boxes. And he also said something out loud that a lot of us were waiting for him to say. Because I'll speak for myself on this. I wasn't sure if Brock Purdy had gotten over that, whatever that glitch in his brain was that he got from 2024, where he's forcing balls. We lost that game in 2024 against the Rams because Brock threw 2 horrendous picks early in downs with guys open because he got in his head that he had to force it. He comes out and talks about the Browns. He said how him and the coach talked about he doesn't have to be Superman. What he has to do is he has to hold on to the ball, control the game. Don't give the other team freebies. And he learned that by watching Mac Jones. Mac Jones was not making the type of high-level throws that Brock Purdy is asked to do game in and game out. If you think that that's not true, fight me. We'll put the video on and I will show you. play after play after play of Mac Jones missing wide open guys running across the field, and of Brock Purdy making high level, not just reads, but throws. Brock Purdy doesn't have a good arm. Then how does he throw a 30-yard opposite hash deep out? Why is his longest throw air yards, 57 yards or whatever it is? Brock does not have a good arm. I've said that already. Nobody's arguing he does. But the idea that he doesn't have an NFL arm is stupid. Y'all got me swearing so much today. Because these narratives it drives me nuts. Because you don't have to make it up. The information was all there. What Brock Purdy showed down the stretch is that some things finally clicked. He finally got back into that rhythm. Anticipatory throwing. Accuracy. The timing got so much better. And wait a second, though. Didn't Brock Purdy have one of the worst wide receiver cores in football this year? Yeah, he did. Did he have a running back averaging 3.5 yards a carry? Maybe not even that. Yeah, they had that too. Was there an offensive line in front of him that was constantly having to move people around, starting Spencer Burford at left guard, who's failed at like 3 other positions at this point? Yeah. Do we have a defense that couldn't get a pass rush, couldn't get off the field? Yep. He finally had some help and went 7-2. Look at his stats over a 17-game season and tell me that those aren't like borderline Pro Bowl stats. And he did it with a terrible wide receiver core, an average offensive line at best, no run game, a defense that's not doing him any favors. Where are all the people that said they wanted to see what Brock could do without all the Avengers? Because they weren't there this year, and he played very well. Is Brock an elite quarterback? Of course not. There's like 4 of those guys in all of football. It drives me nuts when people try to elevate somebody like Herbert. Oh, he's an elite quarterback. No, he's not. He has an elite skill set, talent-wise. He has not shown anybody yet that he actually can play elite football consistently. There's like 3 or 4 guys in the entire league that are elite. At this point, it's hard to even say that Joe Burrow is elite, even though he's played elite football consistently and he's got all the skill sets and stuff you need. But the dude can't stay healthy. So is he an elite quarterback? That's the problem with Brock. The one thing, the resounding conclusion to the end of this season, and I hate to say it, Mac Jones might be a better fit for quarterback for this team. It's not because I think Mac's a better quarterback. I need you to listen to what I'm saying. Brock Purdy at this point in their career is a better quarterback than Mac Jones. He's probably like the 7th or 8th best quarterback in the league. 12th if you want to try to hang every single thing. You could argue anywhere in that range. I could argue he's the 8th or 9th best quarterback easily. But you can make a good argument that he's like 14th also. To me, he's clearly a QB1. He is clearly a franchise quarterback. What do we want from a franchise quarterback? A franchise quarterback and an elite quarterback are not the same thing. An elite quarterback is a franchise quarterback that gives you extra shit on a regular basis. Brock Purdy's a little bit short of that because he doesn't have the physical skill set to transcend a game, to take it over and just Superman his way through it. He tries sometimes, and it gets him in trouble because he doesn't have the skill set to do it. That's why he's a franchise quarterback and not an elite quarterback, even though he does some elite things sometimes. Not consistently enough. A franchise quarterback. Okay. What is a quarterback's job? It is to distribute the football where it's supposed to go on time, accurately. That's their whole job. Their secondary job is to manage the football game and make good decisions when the ball's not in their hands. Okay? Obviously, good decision making goes into that first one as well. Even when you're handing the ball off, knowing what play you're in and knowing to turn to the right or the left, getting the ball to the right spot on the running back, that the quarterback's whole job is to deliver the ball where it's supposed to go on time accurately. That's their whole function. And Brock Purdy does that as well as every quarterback in the league consistently, except for like 5. But there's a handful of guys that probably deserve to go ahead of him because they're elite traits. So he's probably like 8. Okay, 9, 10. People that act like he's the 15th best quarterback either don't know anything about football or are being intentionally obtuse. It's one of those two things. After saying all that, how can you possibly say that Mac Jones might be a better fit for this team? Because there's one ability that we haven't touched on much, and it's the most important ability, and it's availability. Brock Purdy, not only does he get banged up too much, he's a small quarterback who runs around a lot. He's going to get hurt again. Maybe he'll go another season, maybe even 2, where he only misses like a game or 2, maybe. But the likelihood of him missing a 6-game stretch over the next 2 or 3 years is very high. The likelihood that he's going to miss 4, 5, 6 games next season, at least 50-50. That's a real problem. He has to prove that he can give you 16 games, 17 games, 19, 20 games consistently year after year before you can really have a conversation about him being a 6th, 7th, 8th best quarterback. He should never be in the conversation with the elite guys. It would take a lot to realistically have that conversation. Talking about like 3 years of him playing the way he did for a short stretch in the 2023 season. Maybe if he does that for like 2.5 seasons in a row, then maybe you can have a conversation about it. He develops finally into his full potential. It's very unlikely. It's probably not going to happen. I would love to see it. I'm the Brock guy. That would just be fun, but it's unlikely. What makes Mac a better fit? Well, one, there's a chance. There's a realistic scenario where Mac Jones with another offseason under Kyle Shanahan, a slightly improved roster, right? You don't have to get super good around him, but just, add a playmaker or 2, maybe give him a better offensive line so he doesn't get killed. If he gets a little closer to Purdy with the decision-making, the coaches trust him a little bit more with the type of high-level throws they're asking him to make more consistently. Again, I'm not saying he never made any high-level throws. I'm saying that he was not asked to make high-level throws anywhere near as often as Brock Purdy. And when he was asked, he didn't do it anywhere near as effectively as Brock Purdy. Look at the deep ball metrics. Watch the film. It's all there. If you just watch all of them. Don't just watch the game live and remember only the 6 plays that stick out. Go back and rewatch the film and watch all of it, not just the 6 plays that stick out. I get it. Sometimes football is about those 6 plays. I'm not trying to downplay that. What I'm saying is you have to have context matters. Mac Jones is a better quarterback when he's not at 100% than Brock Purdy is right now. His ability to play, his ability to still deliver an accurate ball on time in a dirty pocket, and when he doesn't have his full strength, his full body, is significantly better than Brock's. The undeniable truth is, as much as I like Brock Purdy, as good of a quarterback as I think he is, it means jack shit if he's not on the field. So what did we learn about the 49ers? Their culture's real, they're tough, they're determined, and they're now back to being the hunters instead of the hunted, which makes them a better football team. We learned that Coach Kyle Shanahan is exactly what we thought he was up here, but that he's been complacent and cocky, and that his process for building a team and building a roster is very flawed. But that doesn't mean it doesn't work. They built a championship contender. So they just need to fix a couple of the things that prevents them from drafting effectively at the top of the draft instead of only drafting effectively at the back of the draft for whatever reason that is. And we learned that Brock Purdy is a legit QB1. And if you're not convinced yet, let me ask you this one last question. What's the critical thing that people always ask about quarterbacks, especially when they're comparing them? How would he be on a different team? Does he elevate the people around him? And I want you to go look at the numbers of the players that were playing on the team when Brock was on the field and when Mac was on the field. And tell me that outside of Kendrick Bourne, damn near every player on that team didn't have better performances when Brock was on the field. The team went 7-2 with Brock and 5-3 with Mac. The defense played a little bit better because they're consistently not in a worse situation. Brock was not just better by every statistical metric, nearly every statistical metric that counts, and almost dead even in most of them that he's not winning. He also showed the ability to elevate. He showed us this year the ability to elevate the players around him. More so than Mac, and more so than we previously thought. If the trend continues, if Brock takes how he finished last season, sort of finally getting over whatever that mental glitch was, he carries it into this offseason, fully healthy. They improve the roster around him just a little bit. I think we see a Brock that returns to Pro Bowl caliber, top 8, undeniably top 8, top 10 quarterback in the league. The thing I don't understand about so many of the, I guess this is one of those situations where, you know, you're going to see what you're looking for. It's what it boils down to. Shanahan proved he's one of the best in the game when shit hits the fan. When everything is smooth sailing, but when shit hits the fan, he's one of the best in the game. But Super Bowls are not won on grit alone. And duct tape holds until it doesn't. You can only duct tape your team together for so long before it falls apart. Brock, he ain't Mr. Relevant anymore. He's our franchise quarterback. But for fuck's sake, can you please just stay on the field, man? Can you please just stay healthy for me? Do it for me. Please. I appreciate everybody coming in tonight. Okay. So 2025 taught us the 49ers they're built different when it counts. Shanahan's a coaching beast when he has limited cards. And Purdy's are QB1. Toe willing. Now, the real work starts. The offseason hits full throttle. And I can't wait for it. If you're still here, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, get in the comments, tell me what you think. Listen, I'm here for the smoke. If you think I'm full of shit, don't hold back. Go to the comments and tell me that you think I'm a giant idiot. That's okay too. I don't care. If you think the show is awesome, that'd be nice if you'd say that too. But the whole point of this show is context. I want all the information. I want all the data so that we can get the clearest picture possible. I'm Chunder Boy, signing off.